This lesson right here is going to be dealing with adding and subtracting fractions again, just like our previous lesson, except this time we're going to be dealing when the denominators are not the same. So first thing we're going to take a look at is common, or what we may consider equivalent, and I'm going to be using both of those, and I'll use a third term as well, which I'll get to almost right away, fractions. So when are they common? Equivalent just means that they're equal, they're the same thing. So if two fractions have the same area of the whole, okay, so if we draw them out and they compose the same amount of area, they are considered to be like or common, and we could use equivalent there as well. I'm just going to use that like term there. So like is another way that we can use it. Like, common, equivalent, we're going to be using those all as the same thing. They're going to be like fractions. Even though these fractions have different numbers, they are in fact equal in value. So they equal the same amount. Even if they have different numbers, they could equal the same amount if they will equal the same amount if they are common, equivalent, or like. Okay, so that's one thing that we need to take a look at. So let's describe the following fractions here. This first fraction here, we have a whole, so this box represents a whole. Now again, if we have a box, it's always going to represent a whole. There are two sections in this fraction, so that is our denominator. One of them is shaded, that will be our numerator, so that is 1/2. This one here, on the other hand, has four sections shaded, or sorry, four sections is broken into, so it'll be over 4, and 2 of them are shaded, and thus it will be 2/4. Now, if we look at these two here, we notice that of the whole, both of them have half of it shaded. Here we represent it with 1/2, which we would often consider to be half, and here we have it listed as 2/4, which is in fact a equivalent, common, like fraction to 1/2. These two are the same value. If we have 1 out of the 2, that's half. If we have 2 out of 4, that's also half. Okay, so it's one way to look at like fractions. We'll take a look at a little bit more here. Now, if we're going to make a common fraction, we can split each section in half. That's kind of what we've done on top here. And then describe the new fraction. And that's exactly what I've done here. So in the above example here, the first fraction right here, so we have the two sections. If we break both of those sections in half, so we draw a line through half of that, we end up with 4 sections. Okay, so this was known as 1/2. This is now known as 2/4. Even though all we've done is just break the two sections in half. So as the two sections are now shaded, the new fraction is 2/4. Therefore, 1/2 and 2/4 are the same thing. So these are in fact like fractions or common fractions. Okay, they equal the exact same amount. So now let's create fractions which are equal to 1/2. And so to think of it that way here, we can look at this one here, this here. Sorry, let me just make a new one. That was what I was going to do. Okay, so here is my new box. I'm going to make it a bit bigger. And there's the halfway mark, and I'm just going to shade in this side right here. Okay, so that's 1/2. Now if we break, so we want to create fractions that are equal to 1/2. So if we break these two in half, it is now, so 1/2 is equal to 2/4, okay, because 2 out of the 4 sections are now shaded. If we cut all of them in half again, we now have 8 sections, okay, and they should all be even, and 4 of them are shaded, so 4/8 would be the same. And again, we can do that again, break all those sections into a half. Now we have 16 sections, and 8 of them are shaded. And you might start to see a bit of a pattern that is forming here. What we're doing is we're just doubling everything, right? So we're doubling the top and we're doubling the bottom. Double the top, double the bottom. Okay? Those are all equivalent or exactly the same fractions. So in fact, these are all the same. Okay, they're all equal to each other, which is why I have the little equal sign in between there. They are all equal to each other. Okay, they're all the same. And now I didn't complete this here because 64 sections is a lot. I really do not feel like breaking it into 64 sections right now. Okay, so that's one way to do it, and you might start to see that there are other ways that we can do it, maybe what could be considered a little bit easier. But another way to create a common, and again, they're also called equivalent fractions. I'm going to get that in there right away here. So another way to create an equivalent or common fraction is to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same integer, which is kind of what we did at the end here. We were multiplying by 2. Okay? If we multiply by the same integer, we can create even more. Okay? There's other fractions in between these that are common as well that we're not going to get if we just keep splitting up this bar or this whole. So let's take a look at, let's create 4 fractions which are equal to 2/3. Okay? So if we were just to double it, okay, which is a pretty straightforward one, this would be 4/6. Now, what we did here is we would double it again, but what if we just, instead of doubling this, we would multiply this one by 3? We would get 6/9. Okay, so if we multiply this by 3, it's 6/9. Remember, we're multiplying the top and the bottom by 3. And if we multiply, let's say, by 4, we would get 8/12, which in fact is doubled this one here. And if we multiply it by 5, we're going to get 10/15. Those are all the same. Even though we didn't double them all, these are all in fact the same, because what we did is we just took the first fraction and we multiplied it by an integer. We could also take another fraction here and multiply it by an integer, and we'll get a common one as well. So any one of these can be multiplied by integers and then will be common as well. Now, when it comes to equivalent fractions, for improper fractions, we can do exactly the same thing. So to find an equivalent fraction for 4/3, what we'll do is we'll multiply them both by the same thing. So again, it could be just 8/6, that works. Or if, let's say, we multiply it by 10, this will be 40/30. I know, big numbers, but that's okay. We can deal with big numbers. Or something a little smaller, let's say we multiply by 5, this would be 20/15. Those are all equivalent fractions. They all equal the same thing. Now, if you're using equivalent fractions with mixed numbers, it's important that the whole number needs to stay the same. We're not changing the whole number, we're just wanting to change the fraction. So 2 1/5 could also be written out as 2 and, now if we multiply both by 2, it would be 2 2/5, or 2/10, or 2 3/15. You notice the whole number staying the same, it's just a fraction that's changing. Or let's say 2 4/20. Those are all common fractions. So while we're on that topic here, you can take a look at questions 1 through 4 on the assignment, as they deal with looking at common or equivalent fractions and what are a little bit of what those fractions are.